I'm going to make this in 10-minute intervals so that you can kind of decide which problems you want to look at, and that might organize them just a little bit better so you don't have to watch hours of this at a time if you don't want to or need to. So starting with the first one, here are the things you know. I know that my y-intercept is going to be 0, because if I put x equals 0 in for all the x's, not 0, 2. I get 2 back, so I know there's going to be a point right there. I know that because it's x to the third, I'm going to start and end differently. So my end behavior, because it's a positive x to the third, my end behavior is positive. So I'm going to start negative. So something like that. And I also know, because it's x to the third, that I'm going to have 2 turns. So 2 turns might look something like that. Okay, so this is something that you can definitely multiple choice narrow down your answers to. The next one, same thing here. I know that because it's x to the fourth, there's going to be 3 turns. I know because it is x to the fourth that they're going to start and end the same, which is positive, because it is positive x to the fourth. And I know that my x-intercept, my y-intercept, when I plug in 0 for all the x's, is 0. Okay, so I know I have this, and it's probably going to look something like that, a W that is opening up. 3 wants us to find to factor these. So to factor, I want to factor by grouping. So I'm going to factor here. I can take an x squared out of both, and I'm left with x minus 4. This one, I can take a negative 1 in order to leave me with an x minus 4. So now what I have is x squared minus 1 and x minus 4. So then this can still factor down into 2 more things of x plus 1 and x minus 1, and this one's going to stay the same. And then you factor them down to its lowest factored form. Number 4 has to do with cubes. Okay, so remember that when we do cubes, they're a little bit different. Okay, so they have their own formula. Remember, when it is addition, you're going to go a plus b, a squared minus a times b plus b squared. Okay, so then you have to decide what your a and your b values are. Well, my a value is going to be x, because that's the cubed root of x cubed, and my b is going to be the cubed root of 64, which is 4. So now you're just plugging it into the equation, and you get x plus 4, then x squared minus 4x plus 16. If you needed to find the zeros of this, you could use the quadratic equation, but this one is only asking us to factor. Number 5 is asking us to find all of the zeros on this one. So if you're trying to find all the zeros on this one, you need to think about your p's and your q's and doing synthetic division. So my p values are of 4. So plus or minus 1, plus or minus 2, and plus or minus 4. My q values are of 2, which is plus or minus 1 and plus or minus 2. So my p over q values are going to be plus or minus 1, 2, 4, and then 1/2. So now I need to do synthetic division with this. Because I know what the answer is, I'm going to go ahead and go with 2. Remember, when I'm setting this up, it's 2x to the fourth. There's 0x cubed. There's negative 9x squared, 0x, and 4 is my constant. So make sure you're putting those zeros in there. Drop down this 2, multiply by 2 to get 4. Add those together, get 4. Multiply to get 8. Negative 1, negative 2. Multiply that, get a negative 4, which is 0. So that's what we want as a remainder of 0. So remainder, this is my number, my constant, x, x squared, and x cubed. Well, if I'm still at x cubed, then I have to do synthetic division again. So if I'm doing synthetic division again, I can try any one of those things again. So I'm going to try and do negative 2. So if I do negative 2, dropping this down, I get negative 4, which is 0, 0, negative 1, positive 2, 0. Okay, so that's my remainder, my number, my x, and my x squared. So now my new equation that I have to solve is to get 2x squared minus 1 equaling 0. So then, from there, that's going to give me x squared equals 1/2 when I add the 1 and divide by 2. So then I have to take the square root of both. So I get square root of 1 over the square root of 2. Can't have square roots in the bottom, so I have to rationalize the denominator. And I get root 2 over 2. Okay, this is a plus or a minus because it is a square root. So my answer to this would be 2, negative 2, root 2 over 2, and negative root 2 over 2. All 4 of those answers would be correct, and we know that it has to have 4 because it is x to the 4th. 6 is going to be the same thing where we have to do synthetic division with this, with our p's and q's. So I'm going to do synthetic division with negative 1. It's 5x cubed, negative 19x squared, negative 29x, and negative 5. No zeros needed here. So 5 becomes negative 5, negative 24 becomes a positive 24, negative 5 becomes a positive 5, which is 0. So this is my remainder, my number, my x, and my x squared. So I get 5x squared minus 24x minus 5. And now I know that I can factor this. I say, okay, what multiplies to negative 25 that adds to negative 24? This is my multiply part, and this is my add. So what does that is going to be negative 25 and a positive 1. So then I go 5x squared minus 25x plus x minus 5. Factor by grouping, I can take out a 5x. I'm left with x minus 5. And then take out a 1, and I still have x minus 5. So then I get 5x plus 1 equals 0, and x minus 5 equals 0. And when you solve both of those, you get the negative 1 from the original, you get 5, and you get negative 1/5. And you know that there has to be 3 answers to this because it is x to the 3rd. Okay, number 7. It wants to know the end behavior of this. So what happens is this is x to the 4th, so it's going to be the same, but it's negative x to the 4th. So it's going to start negative, and it's going to end negative. So it's going to rise, I guess, technically, because it's starting negative. Number 8. This one is x to the 5th, but it's positive x to the 5th. So when I do my start and my end, I know it's going to end positive because of this, because it's all about the end behavior. And because I know it's opposite, it's going to start negative. 9 and 10 want you to name each polynomial on this. So on number 9, what you have on here is a cubic. Because of this, it's a to the 3rd. That's making it cubic. And then there are 1, 2, 3 terms, so it's a trinomial. Number 10 to the 5th makes it quintic. And then, because there is 1, 2, 3, 4 terms, it's a polynomial, meaning many. 11 and 12, split both of those, split screen here. 11 and 12, I guess you can't really see those. I want you to combine your like terms, so I would stack them because I think that's easier to do. So I'm going to start with my stuff to the 4th that I have, which I'm not going to have time on this one, so I'm going to go ahead and move this to our next 10 minutes.